tonight we'll be taking a very long, very uneventful journey through the dust-covered days of the American Wild West and explaining in exhaustive detail why you would have found it incredibly uncomfortable, inconvenient, and frankly, not very fun at all. So lay back, close your eyes, and prepare for some very dry information. Let's begin in the 1800s, specifically the mid-1800s, the year 1851. You have just decided to go west. Maybe you're chasing land, maybe gold, maybe freedom, but first you'd have to travel. The journey would take months. You might travel by ox-drawn wagon, which moves at about 2 miles per hour. Let's pause here. 2 miles per hour. That means if you traveled for 10 full hours, you might make it 20 miles, maybe. And that's only if nothing broke, which it did, constantly. The wooden wheels of wagons would splinter, axles snapped, horses got tired, oxen got sick. You had to stop frequently to just fix things. And of course, you had to cook from scratch every day. Over a fire you had to make. From wood you had to gather. And then came the dust. Everywhere was dust. You'd breathe it in while riding. It'd cake your skin. It'd settle in your clothes, your food, your socks. Baths were rare. In fact, many pioneers went weeks without bathing, sometimes months. They would wipe their faces with cloths, or nothing at all. And water, it wasn't just hard to find, it was often dirty. Drinking bad water led to dysentery, which, in case you don't know, is a very unglamorous intestinal condition. It was very common and very uncomfortable when you finally arrived in your new town. If there was a town, it was likely just a few buildings, wooden shacks, nailed together quickly, not insulated, and definitely not painted. The saloon looked just like the jail, which looked just like the schoolhouse, which sometimes were all the same building. Which are, in fact, dried pieces of buffalo dung. They were the only thing available for warmth. They smelled like exactly what they were. If you lived in the West, chances are you didn't have many neighbors. If you did, they might live several miles away. Mail took weeks, sometimes months, and even then, letters were short and full of bad news. You might go weeks without speaking to someone, and when you did, it was probably about the weather or corn. Church was a big event because there wasn't much else to do. People gathered, they sat, they listened to long sermons, and then they went home quietly. If you got sick, which you probably did, you had a few options. Option 1, traveling doctor with a horse and a rusty saw. Option 2, herbs someone's grandma collected. Option 3, hope. Doctors didn't have anesthesia. They'd give you whiskey or bite on a stick. Surgeries were messy, infection was likely, and recovery very uncertain. Even something as simple as a broken arm could ruin your entire life. Yes, there were outlaws. Yes, there were sheriffs. But no, it wasn't exciting. Shootouts were rare. Most crimes involved stealing horses or cattle or land. Sometimes someone cheated at poker. Justice wasn't swift. It was bureaucratic and often unfair. Courts were informal, juries were drunk, and punishment ranged from being ignored to being hanged. But mostly, people just tried to survive. The stories you hear of cowboys, gunfights, and gold are mostly myths. Most people in the Wild West never touched a gun. Cowboys, they were cattle workers who worked long hours, moving cows slowly with sticks. They didn't shoot anything. They just rode in circles, yelled at cows, and got kicked by horses. The Wild West wasn't wild. It was exhausting. You'd probably last a few days, maybe less. Between the food, the dust, the boredom, and the heat, you'd beg for air conditioning, a shower, and some cold water. So next time you romanticize cowboy life, just remember, they didn't have bathrooms, and now you're sleepy. The dust has settled, the fire is low, and your long, boring journey has come to an end. Good night, and sleep very, very well. You'd probably last a few days, maybe less. Between the food, the dust, boredom, and the heat, you'd beg for air conditioning, a shower, and some cold water. So next time you romanticize cowboy life, just remember, they didn't have bathrooms, and now you're sleepy. The dust has settled, the fire is low, and your long, boring journey has come to an end. Good night, and sleep very, very well.